The moment my laptop camera flickered, I should have known something was wrong. Not the usual hotel Wi-Fi hiccup, but the kind of flicker that whispers, "This call's about to gut you." I was mid-demo with a notoriously sharp client from Seattle. Think precision timing, zero patience for excuses, when the screen froze, blinked black, and the silence landed like a punch. I stared at the spinning icon like it was my own obituary. I'd flown 3 time zones for this meeting, hadn't seen my kids in weeks, running on caffeine and cold granola bars, but I kept going. Muscle memory. While the screen buffered, I opened a folder buried deep in an encrypted drive. Active License Owner, Redline Systems, LLC. That folder was the digital spine of our entire platform, the one nobody at Novacore Systems remembered I built, because I never bragged, never networked, never grabbed drinks after stand-up with the people who now called themselves strategic innovators. I didn't panic. I quietly emailed myself a backup, just the token chain, time-stamped. No one else had access. Not legal, not IT, not even the CTO. Because when Novacore bought out a smaller SaaS outfit 5 years ago, I was the only one who understood what inheriting liability actually meant. Everyone else popped champagne, drafted posts about digital transformation. I registered the license under my dormant LLC, Redline Systems. It wasn't ego. It was protection, for the company and for me. Nobody cared how the machine worked until it stopped. You might wonder why someone would build something that important and tell no one. Easy. No one asked, and no one cared, until they couldn't log in. Anyway, if you're still reading, you probably appreciate a slow burn, a little strategic chaos. So, hit that like button, subscribe, and help keep the coffee fund alive. Because revenge done right doesn't need drama. It needs timing. Back to my story. The client's avatar still blinked away like nothing had happened, but technically, I wasn't in the room anymore. I opened another tab to message HQ about the glitch. Then it appeared. A new calendar invite. Subject: Urgent. HR plus VP Brad Connolly. Scheduled to start 3 minutes ago. No context, no details. Just the kind of digital ambush that smells like death in a cubicle. Brad. The guy with the side part fade and a vocabulary made entirely of buzzwords like synergy loop and brand vibration. The guy who once asked me if SOC2 was a new chat app. He'd been promoted to VP 3 months ago. Nobody really knew why. His last 2 launches had bled money like open wounds, but he had energy, charisma, and a golf swing the CEO called executive presence. I joined the call. HR was already there, smiling too softly, voice low and careful, like someone easing a cat into a carrier. Then Brad appeared, smug and calm, like he'd just landed a table at a restaurant I couldn't afford. He didn't say hello, didn't ask about the client demo, just read the script. Lauren, due to restructuring and strategic reprioritization, your role has been made redundant effective immediately. Your credentials have been deactivated. I didn't say a word. I just watched my access vanish in real time. VPN, disconnected. Internal chat, gone. Dashboard, blank. My name evaporated from the system like it had never existed. Then came the final insult. Jenna will be transitioning into your responsibilities. She's already been briefed. Jenna Sparks, fresh out of grad school, whose portfolio was 90% Canva slides and 10% confusion. The same girl who once asked if a binding clause was a typo. I'd told her it was the part of the contract that keeps us from being sued into oblivion. She'd laughed like I was joking. I looked at HR, then at Brad. I said one word, understood, closed my laptop, didn't log out, just shut it like a coffin. The client had no idea I was gone. Yet. But in 5 days, they would. Because that license key I owned had an expiration date. And without my signature, their entire compliance platform was about to go dark. You ever watch your whole career dissolve pixel by pixel? That's what it felt like. I sat there in the silence, no hum of air conditioning, no city noise, just the echo of how cleanly they'd done it. Clinical, practiced, like they'd rehearsed this termination in a mirror. And they probably had. There was no conversation, no warning, no empathy. Just a digital execution between sips of coffee. They thought they'd deleted me from the system, but what they didn't realize was simple. The system was mine. I didn't bother asking why. I already knew. My name didn't fit their new brand vision. Too old school, too blunt, not shiny enough for their glossy investor decks. I wasn't the type to post motivational quotes on LinkedIn or use emojis in emails. I was the one who fixed what broke, quietly and completely. But that's the truth about being the workhorse. They ride you through every storm, then shoot you when the sun comes out. I watched my access blink out piece by piece. Permissions revoked, emails vanishing like stars burning out. A teammate DM'd, "Are you okay?" Before my account disappeared mid-reply. The final insult popped up in a cheery blue box. "Your session has expired. Oh, honey, you have no idea." An hour later, on my personal Gmail, the company-wide email hit. Excited to announce Jenna's expanded role. The kind of announcement that reads like a beauty pageant bio. Thrilled to step into this leadership opportunity. There she was in the photo, standing in front of the Novacor logo, holding a latte like it was a trophy. Leadership opportunity, sure. That's what they call plagiarism now. I didn't respond. Didn't text anyone. Didn't rage post. I just sat there in the hotel room, the vinyl chair sticking to my blouse, and opened my suitcase. Inside was a black envelope I hadn't touched in years. My insurance policy. Redline Systems LLC, formation documents, signed and sealed. The quiet little company with no logo, no investors, no board. Just one job. To own the license that kept a $90 million compliance platform legally alive under U.S. data law. I took a picture of the papers and uploaded them to my encrypted drive. Then I opened the license dashboard. Countdown clock, 5 days, 17 hours, 29 minutes until expiration. No renewal selected. No delegation approved. Brad thought firing me erased me from the company's history. But what he didn't realize, and what poor Jenna had no clue about, was that the license wasn't registered to Novacor Systems. It was between Halvix Technologies, our biggest client, and Redline Systems LLC, and I, Lauren Pierce, was the named grantor, the sole key holder, the only human legally capable of authenticating that token. Without my digital handshake, the software they were so proud of, auditing compliance data across 12 U.S. financial institutions, was about to fall flat on its face. Not because I sabotaged it, not because I touched a single line of code. Just because I wouldn't act. I'd already been erased, so why should I lift a finger to save them? I whispered the same word I told Brad on the Zoom call. Understood. Then I powered the laptop down and let the lights go dark. Not just on my screen, but on theirs. I didn't appeal. Didn't ask HR to reconsider. Let them keep the severance. I already had my parachute, carefully packed and waiting. The next morning, I booked a flight to San Diego, the city where Halvix's headquarters sat overlooking the bay. Packed everything into my roller bag, checked out like I was leaving a crime scene, and walked straight past the front desk without a glance back. I didn't tell the client I'd been fired. Figured I had 5 days before the silence turned into alarms. 5 days before the license key I controlled quietly bled out, and their entire infrastructure froze. By the time my boots hit California soil, the buzzing started. Subtle at first. A project analyst emailed me from her personal account. Hey Lauren, weird question. We can't see phase 2 data on the dashboard. Glitch on our side? Then another. 5 login failures in the last hour. Server issue? By the time I checked into my hotel near the marina, I had 9 missed calls. All unknown numbers. All probably from Novacore. People just realizing Jenna from onboarding didn't know what the hell a digital authentication token was. I silenced the phone, ordered room service, and poured a glass of wine. Then I opened my personal laptop, the one they didn't know existed. 3 encrypted drives, 1 private domain registrar registered offshore. I logged into the license management portal. Plain interface, no logos, no corporate branding. Just a table of keys, each with a countdown clock. There it was, token active. Status, valid. Expiration, 4 days, 19 hours, 12 minutes. No renewal scheduled, no delegation authorized. Beneath it, the clause I'd written years ago. License remains valid only with active authentication by the named grantor. Redline Systems, LLC. Brad had no idea what kind of bomb he'd just lit. I'd written that clause myself, back when the Velotron acquisition nearly imploded our compliance stack. The CTO was golfing with investors while I stayed up nights patching the framework with caffeine and willpower. No one wanted to take liability, so I did. I created Redline Systems, registered the token, embedded the clause that made the license bulletproof, and by extension, mine. For 5 years, nobody mentioned it. No bonus, no acknowledgement, not even a thank you email. But now, that forgotten clause had become the heartbeat of a multi-million-dollar system. Without my reauthorization, the license would lapse, and the platform would fail every audit check in its path. Once that failure hit the federal compliance logs, Halvix's network would freeze until recertified. Translation? Millions in losses, late fees, regulatory fines, and chaos. None of which would be my doing. I wasn't sabotaging anything, I was just doing nothing. And sometimes, silence is the sharpest weapon you've got. So, I waited. I didn't gloat, didn't panic, just watched the clock. At Novacore's San Francisco headquarters, they were still pretending everything was fine. Brad was probably strutting through the glass hallways, latte in hand, posting about growth mindset on LinkedIn. Jenna was probably color-coding PowerPoint slides and calling it strategy. And yet, on Halvix's end, the system had started coughing. It began small. Access delays, data desyncs, API errors. Then, like dominoes, whole modules started rejecting authentication. Within hours, dashboards across half a dozen banks went blank. The audit logs blinked red. Invalid grantor. That wasn't a crash. That was the system refusing to run. At first, the Halvix legal team assumed it was a software issue. They opened a support ticket, waited for a response. None came. Nobody at Novacore had the credentials to even log into the registry. By the time they realized the token trail led to Redline Systems, LLC, the compliance penalties had already begun. $50,000 per hour of downtime, non-negotiable, written right into the contract. 8 hours in, they'd racked up nearly $500,000 in penalties. That's when Brad's name finally showed up in my inbox. Subject line: Urgent, License Access Clarification. The email was a masterpiece of corporate groveling disguised as professionalism. Hi Lauren, hope you're doing well. It appears there's been a small miscommunication regarding the active license ownership for the Halvix deployment. Totally understand if there's confusion following the transition, but would you be open to a quick call to resolve this? Best, Brad Connolly, VP Global Operations. No apology. No accountability. Just Brad pretending he hadn't kicked the chair out from under me a week ago. I didn't reply. Not because I was cruel. Because it wasn't my problem anymore. They'd voided the agreement the second they fired the grantor. Compliance isn't a vibe, it's a contract. And contracts don't bend for politics. Back at Novacore HQ, panic was spreading like mold in a wet ceiling. Engineers couldn't reboot the platform because it was cloud authenticated through my now expired key. Support calls were piling up from every Halvix branch office. Jenna was crying in a Slack thread. Brad was holding all hands emergency calls every 2 hours, demanding progress reports that didn't exist. Meanwhile, I was sitting on a bench overlooking the San Diego Bay, sipping cold brew and watching sailboats drift by like nothing in the world was burning. The air smelled like salt and smoke from a distant barbecue. My phone buzzed nonstop, vibrating against the wooden bench until I finally flipped it face down. Late that night, one of my old teammates texted me from a personal number. Just 4 words. "They finally know, Lauren." I smiled for the first time in days, because that meant someone in their boardroom had finally asked the question that should have been asked years ago. Who actually owns the license? And the answer, the one now glowing in every internal email, every legal thread, every investor call, was simple. Lauren Pierce, Redline Systems, LLC. At 7:06 a.m. Pacific Time, the first domino fell. Halvix's compliance director, a no-nonsense former auditor named Frank Haller, formally triggered Clause 14.3 of their master contract with Novacore, breach notification and penalty accrual. The clause was blunt, American legal at its finest. No soft language, no wiggle room. In the event of sustained system deactivation not caused by force majeure or planned maintenance, vendor shall incur penalties of $50,000 per hour until full functionality and certification are restored. Translated, $1.2 million per day, compounding, non-negotiable. And the timer was already running. Inside Novacore's headquarters, panic hit like a thunderclap. Brad called legal. Legal called the CTO. The CTO called infrastructure. Everyone was talking, but nobody was saying anything useful. They blamed the firewall, the host servers, rogue tokens, even a phantom update. But then a junior analyst, bless her insomnia, dug into the archives and unearthed a 5-year-old email thread labeled Velatron Integration, Interim License Structure. There it was, me, the CTO, and a young legal assistant named Dylan, who'd since been promoted. The email chain was damningly clear. Dylan had written, "So to confirm, Lauren, you're setting up Redline Systems LLC as temporary license holder until Novacore assumes direct ownership?" I'd replied, "Correct. Redline will act as named grantor until transfer of liability is complete. If no transfer occurs, the license remains with Redline indefinitely." Attached, the signed document, time-stamped, sealed, and conveniently ignored for half a decade. They had 5 years to fix it. 5 years to transfer ownership. 5 years to prevent exactly what was happening. But they didn't. Too busy building slideshows about vision. Too busy hosting quarterly town halls to talk about innovation culture. Too busy admiring themselves. When Brad saw that email, his voice reportedly cracked in the war room. "Wait, she still owns it?" No one answered. Because yes, I did. By that point, I was sitting on the hotel balcony in San Diego, watching the marina shimmer in the late morning sun. My phone was buzzing like a hive. 10 missed calls, 15, then 27. Every one of them from Novacore executives or numbers labeled unknown. The inbox filled with urgent subject lines. "Need your signature. System down. We can fix this together." Brad's voicemail transcription appeared first. "Lauren, we need to talk. There's been a misunderstanding. We can collaborate on a quick resolution before the client escalates." Then legal chimed in. "Ms. Pierce, this is Rebecca from Novacore's legal department. We're hoping to clarify ownership details regarding the Halvix platform license. There may have been an administrative lapse, like forgetting to water a plant, not detonating a compliance bomb under a $90 million contract." The CTO tried next, his voicemail full of buzzwords and panic. The translation was simple. "We can't get the system online without you." But the most honest message came from Dylan, The same legal assistant from that old email chain. No subject line. No greeting. Just the original license PDF attached and a single line below it. You were right. I didn't reply. I didn't need to. By now, Halvix's legal division had already started drafting its public disclosure. Under U.S. law, any service outage affecting financial compliance must be reported within 72 hours, which meant, soon, investors would know. The markets would feel it, and Novacore's house of glass would start to shatter. But I wasn't angry anymore. There's a point beyond rage where everything goes perfectly still, like the air before a storm. That's where I live now, calm, focused, watching. That afternoon, I walked down to the pier, bought a black coffee, watched the yachts move slow across the water. The breeze carried a faint hum of chaos from across the bay, the sound of people realizing the ship was sinking and the captain had thrown the only lifeboat overboard. Brad could have owned the system, could have transferred the license, could have treated me with an ounce of respect. Instead, he fired me on Zoom. And now, his empire was drowning in silence. Brad's version of leadership was denial with a side of panic. When faced with a fire, some people reach for water. Brad reached for gasoline. Instead of owning the failure, admitting he'd axed the one person who held the backbone of the operation, he tried to cheat the system. Word reached me through an old contact in DevOps. Apparently, he'd ordered the engineering team to generate a duplicate key using archived specs from the original license. His plan? Forge a new token and swap my name for Novacore's. He thought compliance software worked like a password reset. But this wasn't Netflix. It was federal-grade encryption tied to biometric and legal authentication. You don't fake that. You don't copy-paste your way out of a contract. The moment that fraudulent key pinged the U.S. authentication server, the system did exactly what it was designed to do. Rejected it. Permanently. Error 4003. Grantor mismatch. Reason: illegal key source escalation. The system even escalated the incident to Halvix's internal security board automatically. An hour later, my inbox lit up again, this time forwarded by an ex-Novacore engineer now freelancing for Halvix. The email thread was chaos, screenshots, red alerts, and at the center of it, Brad's frantic Slack messages. We can't just delete her and expect it to work. The system is literally yelling at us. Somebody find a workaround before legal eats me alive. What does biometric signature chain even mean? We've got 48 hours before the board finds out this isn't a glitch. Except it wasn't 48 hours. It was 72, and the countdown had already started. That afternoon, Halvix's legal team fired their shot across the bow. If the original license is not re-authenticated by the grantor within 72 hours, Halvix Technologies will terminate all commercial contracts with Novacore Systems and pursue damages under U.S. contract law. No bluff, no softness. Just ironclad language signed by 3 executives and 1 outside counsel. Inside Novacore, that email hit like a meteor. Legal scrambled to draft statements. The CTO muttered acronyms like prayers. Jenna was removed from every client-facing Slack channel before she even knew what had happened, and Brad, Mr. Strategic Vibes, went dead silent. His LinkedIn post from earlier that week, the one where he'd proudly announced next-gen leadership for Novacore, disappeared. Deleted. That's when the letter went out from my attorney. It was short, surgical, notarized, and hand-delivered to Novacore Legal. Subject: cease and desist. License violation. Body: pursuant to Clause 7A of the Halvix Novacore Licensing Agreement and the original Redline Systems LLC contract, termination of the named grantor nullifies all license obligations and authorizations. Any attempt to replicate, forge, or override the license constitutes a direct violation of the U.S. Data Compliance Act, Section 12, and may be referred to federal authorities. Cease all further action immediately. Signed, Legal Counsel for Redline Systems, LLC. I could almost hear the silence in that boardroom from across the country when they read it. Suddenly, it wasn't a technical glitch, it was a federal compliance violation. And the only person who could fix it was the one they'd erased. That evening, I sat at a small cafe near the waterfront, the same seat I'd claimed every morning that week, ordered an espresso, watched the light hit the water like a mirror, calm and unbothered. My phone buzzed relentlessly with messages from old coworkers. Brad's losing it. Legal's in crisis mode. Jenna's been told to take personal leave to reflect on alignment. I didn't reply. I didn't need to. Because for once, I didn't have to lift a single finger. They were collapsing on their own. By the second morning of the 72-hour deadline, Novacore's CFO, a perfectly polished man named Lowell Gant, the same one who once called my work quietly sufficient, scheduled a 6 a.m. emergency shareholder call. The subject line read, Helvix Partnership Status Update. Translation, we're bleeding and the person holding the knife isn't even in the room. The shareholder call began with the usual smoke and mirrors. Lowell's voice was calm, measured, and utterly useless. We've experienced some temporary disruptions in our client's infrastructure due to unforeseen authentication inconsistencies, he said, reading straight from the script Legal had written. He blamed transition errors, third-party miscommunication, and unexpected system downtime. Classic corporate spin for we lit ourselves on fire and don't know how to stop burning. But shareholders aren't interns. They'd invested tens of millions into the Helvix partnership, and some of them had been on site for the signing party 2 years earlier. One of them, a gruff New York investor named Henderson, who'd never been known for patience, cut through Lowell's PR fluff like a buzzsaw. Hold on, he barked, voice gravelly through the speakerphone. Who owns the damn license? You could have heard a pin drop. Someone shuffled papers. Lowell hesitated, his voice cracking for the first time. There appears to be legacy ownership issues stemming from the Velatron integration. Wrong answer? Henderson jumped back in. So wait, you're telling us she owned it? The woman you fired on Zoom? The silence stretched long enough for everyone to hear Lowell's breath catch. Because, yes, that's exactly what he was saying. While that call was happening, another message was circulating internally, forwarded by someone in legal who'd clearly had enough. No salutation, no spin. Just one line in bold red font at the top of the thread. Lauren Pierce owns the license. Novacore never transferred it. It hit inboxes like a grenade. Executives, department heads, directors, everyone saw it. There was no more pretending, no way to frame it as a bug or a glitch. I was the owner. The company had fired its own compliance backbone, and now the world knew. Brad didn't respond to any of it, because by then, he couldn't. He'd been placed on administrative leave pending internal review. In corporate language, that means your badge doesn't work, and your name's already off the website. Jenna's access was revoked less than an hour later. Her goodbye Slack post, feeling grateful for my time at Novacore and ready for new adventures, was deleted before anyone could react. Word spread fast. An old product manager, one who used to roll his eyes whenever I pushed for stricter legal audits, texted me out of nowhere. They're finally saying your name out loud. I stared at the message for a long moment, unsure if I felt satisfaction or just release. Because that's what corporate life does. It erases you slowly, makes you invisible until the day your absence costs them real money. Then suddenly, you're not just remembered. You're the ghost that haunts every boardroom. Meanwhile, the fire kept spreading. Helvix filed its preliminary breach declaration with regulators that same afternoon. Journalists caught wind. Within 24 hours, 3 tech blogs and 1 financial news outlet ran headlines like Novacore faces compliance nightmare after firing key engineer. A columnist even called it the most expensive case of executive short-sightedness in the decade. And through it all, I said nothing. No press statement. No gotcha post. No viral clapback. I didn't need to. Silence was my armor now. I just kept walking. Through the marina. Past the cafes. Down to the quiet streets near Harbor Drive, where the air smelled like salt and cold iron. My phone kept buzzing with notifications, mentions, messages, missed calls, but I didn't check them. Because by then, something else had landed in my inbox. A clean, minimal email. No logo, no subject fluff, just a few words that changed everything. From Evelyn Ross, Chief Strategy Officer, Halvix Technologies. Subject, continuity discussion. Private inquiry. Body, Ms. Pierce, we understand the recent circumstances surrounding Novacore's contract termination. We'd like to explore the possibility of engaging directly with Redline Systems LLC for ongoing platform continuity and support, under terms favorable to you. Are you open to a discussion? No desperation, no threats, just respect. For the first time in 5 years, someone wasn't talking at me. They were talking to me. I didn't reply right away. I let the email sit there in my inbox while I finished my walk along the harbor. The sun was dropping behind the marina, turning the water gold, and for the first time in years, I felt still. No deadlines, no Slack pings, no Brad breathing down my neck pretending to understand compliance law. Just silence and possibility. When I finally got back to the hotel, I poured a glass of white wine, opened my laptop, and reread the message. Every line was clean, deliberate, respectful. We'd like to explore a direct engagement under terms favorable to you. Translation: They wanted me, not Novacore. I responded the next morning. Please forward draft terms for review. Within hours, Halvix's legal department sent over a document so crisp it could cut glass. They didn't even pretend to hide what they were doing. Novacore was done. They wanted the platform, and I was the only person who could keep it alive. For once, I had leverage, and I wasn't going to waste it. I read every paragraph carefully, every clause like a lawyer with a vendetta. Then I added my own. Section 5. Exclusivity and ownership. It read, This license is non-transferable. No subcontracting or third-party administration is permitted. Authorization and support may only be rendered by Redline Systems LLC and its named principal, Lauren Pierce. Agreement remains valid until revoked by the grantor. No loopholes. No ambiguity. I'd built the system. Now I would control it permanently. I sent the document back and waited. It took them less than 3 hours to respond. Approved, signed, and notarized. 3 signatures from Halvix executives, 1 from their legal officer, and 1 from me. Done. No edits, no pushback. The client didn't want to negotiate. They wanted to move forward. And just like that, I was officially the sole provider of a $90 million compliance platform. Novacore was out. Completely. No transition, no partial ownership, no apology tour. Just erased. When I signed the final page, I was sitting at a cafe overlooking Mission Bay. The contract printed on linen paper in front of me, pen in hand, a glass of Chardonnay beside it. The wind caught the edge of the document as I wrote my name in blue ink. Lauren R. Pierce, Principal, Redline Systems LLC. The moment my signature hit the page, I felt something click inside me. Not triumph, just equilibrium. 5 minutes later, my phone buzzed with a confirmation email. Authorized vendor, Redline Systems LLC. That was it. No fanfare, no champagne. Just closure, the cleanest kind. Meanwhile, across the city, Novacore was unraveling in real time. Investors had started selling off shares. Legal was still trying to spin the story, claiming systemic transition challenges. But you can't PR spin a federal breach report. The SEC filing dropped 2 days later. Novacore Systems has terminated its licensing agreement with Halvix Technologies due to unresolved contractual discrepancies and failure to restore compliance operations. Translation: We lost the deal and have no idea what we're doing. Their stock fell 12% in a single day, 19% by the end of the week. Not catastrophic, but enough to make every shareholder meeting smell like panic and cold coffee. Enough to make them remember my name. Brad? Gone. No farewell memo, no goodbye post, not even a rumor of where he landed. His LinkedIn page went dark within 48 hours. Profile unavailable. Word from inside was that he'd been transitioned out to explore new opportunities. That's corporate for we needed a scapegoat, and yours was the name on the disaster. Jenna didn't even get a headline. Just a vague HR email. Effective immediately, Jenna Sparks has chosen to pursue other opportunities after reflecting on alignment with company values. I almost laughed. Alignment. That's what they called being ejected from a burning building. And me? I didn't post anything. Didn't announce. Didn't even celebrate. I just launched a clean, single-page website, redlinesystems.io. White background, black serif font, one line under the logo. Independent compliance continuity. Owned, delivered, secured. No bios, no team photos, no fluff. Just proof that I was still here.